Over the last several years, I found quite a few books and articles that claimed that Pythagoras believed in the equality of the sexes and was essentially a feminist. The only evidence they ever cite to support this claim is the fact that he admitted women into his school, and he did. But the views of Pythagoras and the Pythagoreans, including Pythagorean women, have very little, if anything, in common with modern feminism or cultural Marxism. In this discussion, I'll go through the earliest Pythagorean sources and discuss major passages related to women, gender roles, and marriage. I'll be quoting passages from the Pythagorean Sourcebook and Library, which is an essential textbook for anyone interested in Pythagorean philosophy. The first passage I want to mention says, "Within his school, he went against contemporary custom in giving equal status to women, and his biographers are careful to record the names of his female disciples." So again, yes, Pythagoras did admit female students into his school, and they were given equal status. That is to say, they were not regarded as lesser or inferior. Very clearly, as we will see throughout this discussion, they were not considered equal in the sense of being the same as men. Gender differences were clearly recognized, and men and women were understood to have different social roles, especially within a marriage. A Pythagorean woman wrote the following: "Some perhaps may not think that it becomes a woman to philosophize, any more than it is suitable for her to ride on horseback or to harangue in public. But I think that while there are certain employments specialized to each sex, that there are some common to both man and woman. Male avocations are to lead an army, to govern, and to harangue in public. Female avocations are to guard the house, to stay at home, to receive and minister to her husband. Her particular virtues are fortitude, justice, and prudence. Both husband and wife should achieve the virtues of the body and the soul. For as bodily health is beneficial to both, so also is health of the soul. The bodily virtues, however, are health, strength, vigor of sensation, and beauty. With respect to the virtues also, some are particularly suitable to men, and some to women. Fortitude and prudence regard the man more than they do the woman, both on the account of the bodily habits and the power of the soul. But temperance particularly belongs to the woman." So obviously she's defending the idea that women can be philosophers. Apparently this was a controversial idea in her time. But she also recognizes that men and women are different, and that certain occupations are more fitting for men, and that others are more fitting for women. She's not saying that women can or should do everything men do. She isn't saying that we have to make sure we have an equal number of men and women in every occupation. She's expressing what I consider to be a very sensible position, and I basically agree with her. There are some things that men are better suited for, some things that women are better suited for, and some things that men and women are both more or less equally well suited for. She's only arguing that philosophy is one of the things that both men and women can take part in, and I agree with her. She also seems to be of the opinion that the primary occupation of a woman should be wife and mother. She believes that a woman's place is in the home. And again, I agree. This doesn't mean that women shouldn't be allowed to work. She doesn't say that women shouldn't be allowed to work, and I don't say that either. The Pythagorean view, and my view, seems to be essentially the modern conservative view. Women are not property or sex objects. They should be equal with men in terms of personal rights and justice under the law, but there are also differences between the sexes. She is certainly not saying that we should have an equal number of women and men in every occupation. She doesn't just believe that men and women are physically different, but that they are different psychologically or mentally as well. She speaks of men and women naturally possessing different virtues. She isn't saying that women are less virtuous or more virtuous. She's only saying that they tend to have different virtues from men. And she sees temperance as a more feminine virtue. She continues to say, "It would be well to know the number and quality of the things through which this virtue is acquirable by women. I think that they are 5. First, temperance comes through the sanctity and piety of the marriage bed. Second, through body adornments. Third, through trips outside the house. Fourth, through refraining from celebrating the rites and mysteries of the Mother of the Gods. Fifth, in being cautious and moderate in sacrifices to the divinities. Of these, however, the greatest and most comprehensive cause of temperance is undefiledness of the marriage bed, and to have connection with none but her husband. Since the last two are concerned with ancient religious customs, I'm only going to concern myself with the first three, and especially with the first two, which I would summarize bluntly as, don't be a whore, and don't dress like a whore. And she herself says that the most important of these is, don't be a whore, which for her means, have no connection with any but your husband. This would seem to be a prohibition on premarital sex and lesbianism as well. She is saying that a woman should not have sex with anyone other than the man she is married to. And my assumption is that she would probably also say that a man should not have sex with anyone other than the woman he is married to. Another Pythagorean text reads, concerning their association with men, they should remember that their female nature had by their parents been granted the license to love their husbands more excessively than even the authors of their existence. Consequently, they should take care neither to oppose their husbands, nor consider that they have subjected their husbands, should these latter yield to them in any detail. This is one of several passages that makes it clear that, in marriage, the wife should submit to the husband, and that the man is the head of the household. This doesn't mean that she is inferior to him, or that she is his property, or that he can abuse her. If we say that children should obey their parents, this doesn't mean that we condone child abuse. Clearly, the idea is that the parents have a responsibility to take care of and provide for their children, and in the same way, a husband has responsibilities to his wife. He isn't granted permission to be a tyrant or to be abusive. Another passage written by a Pythagorean woman reads, a woman should be a harmony of thoughtfulness and temperance. Her soul should be zealous to acquire virtue, so that she may be just, brave, prudent, frugal, and hating vainglory. Furnished with these virtues, she will, when she becomes a wife, act worthily toward herself, her husband, her children, and her family. Frequently also such a woman will act beautifully towards cities, if she happens to rule over cities and nations, as we see is sometimes the case in a kingdom. If she subdues desire and anger, there will be produced a divine symphony. She will not be pursued by illegal loves, being devoted to her husband, children, and family. Women fond of connection with outside men come to hate their families, both the free members and the slaves. They also plot against their husbands, falsely representing them as slanderers of all their acquaintances, so that they alone may appear benevolent. And they govern their families in such a way as may be expected from lovers of indolence. Such conduct leads to the destruction of everything common to husband and wife. Notice that here again, it's basically expected that a woman will become a wife and mother. The Pythagoreans did not share modern feminism's disdain for housewives and mothers. On the contrary, they encouraged women to be wives and mothers, and to be in the home, rather than out in the marketplace competing with men, and putting off starting a family to pursue a career. But we also see that they have nothing against women being in positions of leadership. So again, the Pythagorean view isn't that women shouldn't be allowed to work or to be involved in politics, but I don't see them encouraging women to pursue careers in business or politics. And they seem to see it as the ideal that women should marry and have children. And this seems to be seen as her most important role. The way I interpret the Pythagorean text, it isn't so much that women don't have the ability or the potential to be successful in business or political careers. It isn't that they are inferior to men. It's that the job of bearing and raising the next generation is seen as a far more important job. And obviously it is. Children are the future of a nation. And so it isn't that Pythagoreans saw women as inferior, but that they honored wives and mothers. It's modern feminism, which looks down on a woman's role as wife and mother. But the Pythagoreans didn't look down on the role of women in the home as wives and mothers. They didn't see a married woman who stays at home and raises children as being worth less than a man who is involved in economic or government affairs. If anything, they may have seen them as being worth more. But it seems to me that a man's role in society and a woman's role were seen as essentially equal and complementary. Another passage reads, "She should venerate the gods, thereby hoping to achieve felicity, also by obeying the laws and sacred institutions of her country. After the gods, she should honor and venerate her parents, who cooperate with the gods in benefiting their children. Moreover, she ought to live with her husband legally and kindly, claiming nothing as her own property, but preserving and protecting his bed, for this protection contains all things. In a becoming manner, she should bear any stroke of fortune that may strike her husband, whether he is unfortunate in business, or makes ignorant mistakes, is sick, intoxicated, or has connection with other women. This last error is granted to men, but not to women, since they are punished for this offense. She must submit to the law with equanimity, without jealousy. She should likewise patiently bear his anger, his parsimony, complaints he may make of his destiny, his jealousy, his accusations of her, and whatever other faults he may inherit from his nature. All these she should cheerfully endure, conducting herself toward him with prudence and modesty. A wife who is dear to her husband, and who truly performs her duty towards him, is a domestic harmony, and loves the whole of her family, to which also she conciliates the benevolence of strangers." This is a passage that is guaranteed to send feminists into a rage. I think that we have to understand this within the context of the Pythagorean literature as a whole, though. Based on other passages, I know that the Pythagoreans were not against women having the right to own property. I think this is only saying that in a marriage, a husband and a wife share everything in common. Of course, you may say that as the head of the household, the husband really owns everything. But again, the expectation is that he will provide for her and take care of her, in much the same way that parents provide for and care for their children. Children typically don't own much in the way of wealth and property, but parents are expected to make sure that their children have what they need, even if that involves sacrifice on their own part. Again, this is essentially the view of marriage held by modern conservative Christians. And this shouldn't be surprising, because as I've explained elsewhere, Jesus was a Nazarene, and the Nazarene sect appears to be an offshoot of the Pythagorean Brotherhood. I consider Christianity to be a part of the Pythagorean tradition, but I'm not going to get into that in this discussion. And since this is already going longer than I planned, I'm going to continue this in part 2. Stay tuned.